All right, guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Galactic Tactics, where we talk about everything Twin Suns in the galaxy. Today, we're going to change it up a little bit. I got Davis over here from Tower Number 9, and today, we're going to talk about our favorite cards. This is actually part 2 of a 2-part. Part 1 is over on Tower Number 9's channel, where we kind of talk about the state of play and just kind of Star Wars Unlimited in general. Kind of our favorite things about it, the art, a whole lot of discussion. So definitely we're going to have a link in the description. Check out Tower Number 9, his channel, subscribe over there, and just kind of see part 1 of everything. So how you doing, Davis? Welcome to part 2.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Excited to get into it. There are definitely some cards that I think are really cool in this game. So yeah, excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and kind of looking at everything, all of our cards are different. We don't have any overlap of anything. Possibly because, you kind of look at it more of a premier draft kind of standpoint. I'm looking at it kind of a whole lot of flavor and Twin Suns oriented. So I'm excited to kind of talk about all of our cards. And starting at number 5, I'll let you start off. What is your number 5? We're doing a countdown, so five each.
All right. My top 5, number 5 card, probably the most boring card that's going to appear on this list, is Battlefield Marine. So Battlefield Marine, 2-cost command heroism. It is 3/3 vanilla, no abilities. And like you said, I'm kind of a competitively minded player. I like things that just have nice, efficient stats, and a 2-cost 3/3 in the ground arena. That's just what the doctor ordered. That is a nice, efficient unit. It like either wins or trades with almost all early units, and just a very solid card. It works well in aggro, works well in mid-range, even a solid card if you're going to play a more control-oriented deck, because it trades so well against other 2-drops. So yeah, good old Battlefield Marine. I'll say I'm a big fan of vanilla cards. I like it when the design is in a place where you can have a card that does not have to have an ability to do something good, and you can have something that's just like, yeah, this unit just interacts with the basic mechanics of the game in an efficient way that makes it a good choice. And Battlefield Marine is definitely in that category for me.
Battlefield Marine is like that meme of, it's not hard work, but it's honest work. Just honestly doing his thing. I like that.
It's not much, but it's honest work.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. I guess my vanilla card would be Alliance X-Wing. It's just like I've put it in every deck. I love Alliance X-Wing. Something in space. I feel like people aren't doing a lot in space.
Alliance X-Wing is in many decks that I've built at a competitive level. And it's funny, too, because Alliance X-Wing is, in a certain sense, objectively bad. Which is to say that, there are other cards that are 2-cost 2/3 plus a good ability. So you can look at Inferno 4 or Restored Arc 170. But the 2-cost 2/3 vanilla with the heroism aspect only and the rebel trait is still a good enough card that it sees a good amount of play, even in constructed. Not just one that's like, oh well, if I pick this in draft, I'll be able to go with it no matter what aspect I take. No, it's actually a good card.
Oh no, absolutely, and I like that you're kind of touched on, just being in a space for vanilla cards. Number 5, we're already talking about stuff with everything. Yeah, that's super awesome. So my number 5 is I Am Your Father. It's a 3 villainy, deal 7 damage to an enemy unit unless the controller says no. But you really have to focus in on it. If they do draw 3 cards, I love it just because of flavor. We were talking earlier, it's not necessarily a good card. It's really like pay 3, draw 3, which again, you don't really need to draw too many cards, but it's if you're playing against somebody and they do the no, and it's just like, okay, everyone knows like, you played the card. And it's super fun to me. So I like in the way I want to connect with my cards. It's Star Wars. I've been a Star Wars fan forever. So I Am Your Father is just primo. Oh, just flavor win for just at a base level. I love it.
Yeah, I think thematically it's in at least some sense one of the top cards in the set. It kind of lets you recreate a moment from the movie. And like in terms of power level, I don't think it's the strongest card ever. In general, there's a principle where opponent's choice cards, which is to say where your opponent chooses what effect the card has, tend to be bad because the opponent will choose whichever of the effects matters less for them in the current situation. But, if you're in a situation where both of those effects are really good, then yeah, the card's great. I mean, drawing 3 cards for 3 or dealing 7 damage for 3 are both like more value than you would normally get at that price point. The difficulty is just that your opponent gets to make sure that it's the worse of those 2 values. But sometimes, it's one of those choices where neither option is good for them and you end up with a big profit.
Right, and you got to make them say the thing, right? You always got to make them say the thing.
Plus the theme. Plus the theme.
Right, absolutely. All right, what's your number 4?
My number 4 favorite card here is Han Solo, Reluctant Hero. So Han is a 6-cost, he's a 7-cost Cunning Heroism unit. He is a 6/6, and he has Ambush, and additionally, he has essentially the Shoot First effect, but permanent. So when he's attacking, he deals combat damage before the defender, which means that if he attacks an enemy unit, and his 6 power is enough to defeat them, he just defeats them and takes no damage in return because his combat damage removes them before they get a chance to hit back.
He's the only card in the set that does that, right? Him and Shoot First, which is basically him on a stick.
Yeah, the actual Shoot First card does that too, but Han has that effect basically permanently, and it's not. So I know in Magic this effect is keyworded as First Strike.
Yeah,
it works on defense also, but in this game, it's not keyworded. It's an ability unique to Han and the Shoot First event. And I actually think Han is an extremely underrated card. So people have been talking a lot about Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight and Darth Vader commanding the, is it the First Legion?
I think it's the First Legion. I've got it in a deck.
I sort of want to say it's the 501st Legion because I know that's like a group that's been active, but I think it's the First Legion.
I think it's the first because the 501st was Clone Wars.
Okay. Well, the Vader commanding the First Legion is certainly a good card, and Luke Skywalker is certainly a good card. But honestly, Han, as a 7-cost with a very similar sort of role in terms of you play this unit, it takes something out, and then it's on the board to be a problem for your opponent later. I have often found people have more trouble dealing with Han than some of the others because that Shoot First effect is permanent. It's not just on the turn that he ambushes, and that means that in theory he can just keep picking off unit after unit and taking no damage in the process. Whereas Luke and Vader, yeah, they have good stats and they can fight other units, but they'll be taking damage as they do that and making them getting close. They're just getting closer to being defeated with each of those fights. Whereas Han, in theory, can kill infinity units if your opponent plays 1 unit each turn, and it's always in range for Han to defeat.
Definitely, and it is commanding the First Legion. But I mean, if you throw a card like Entrenched on Han, I mean, it kind of makes him a nightmare, just kind of picking everybody off.
Yeah, if you entrench Han, it's just like, the ground arena is pretty locked down unless you draw some hard removal.
No, I like that, and I've kind of thought about it because First Strike in Magic is super powerful, but with him being the only thing that can do that in Unlimited, I mean, it makes him a powerhouse.
Yeah, I think he's a very strong option, and I also think it's like, again, it's thematic. Han shoots first, as they say.
That's true. I actually watched the original uncut New Hope a couple weeks ago. My cousin got it for me, like literally from the reel, put it on Blu-ray. And in the original cut, Greedo doesn't shoot. Han just straight up murders Greedo.
Now, I think you could argue that it's self-defense and that Greedo is at the very least threatening him with a gun and maybe about to shoot him. But yeah, no, in the original cut, Han shoots Greedo under the table, and Greedo not only does not shoot first, Greedo doesn't shoot at all.
Not shoot at all. Yeah, he's out. And something I just kind of noticed is Luke and Darth Vader aren't on our top 5 whatsoever. Either one of us.
Yeah. And I'm not saying like, maximum disrespect to Luke and Vader. No, those are good cards, but they're not my favorite cards.
Yeah, they're definitely not my favorite to play. Unlike the Bendu, who's my number 4. So he's a 6 blue, so you definitely need a double aspect. Into that, he is a force creature, 4/6 with Sentinel, and on attack, the next non-heroic, non-villainy card you play this phase costs 2 less. I like him because he is the one in the middle, and kind of rewards you for playing, you know, not completely into one side or the other, but you can't play him in either heroic or villainy. And it gives you kind of that ramp and then a big body for people to crash into. He's just kind of like the jack of all trades for cards. And again, kind of looking at Rebels, he's one of my favorite characters from Rebels. You know, kind of telling Thrawn that, like, hey, bro, you're going to lose. It's cool. And not really ever taking a side. But I don't know, he's a super cool character. And I really like the way they did him in the game.
Yeah, I think you know, again, another very thematic card with the way that his ability sort of plays into, you know, in the lore, his kind of status as a neutral entity.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely like that. And having Sentinel, Sentinel, I feel like, is an underrated ability right now. People aren't, like, you know, actually going, well, I need to put Sentinel, or at least for me when I'm playing with folks, I don't see a whole lot of Sentinel, like maybe one or two from like the third militia, I think it is, the green one. But people aren't, you know.
Oh yeah, what is that? Yeah, I'm blanking on the exact name, but it's something militia. Yeah. Homestead militia.
Yeah, Homestead militia. And Echo Base Defender. That's actually what I was thinking of. With the 3-drop.
Echo Base Defender is sick. That's such a good card.
Right. And just kind of forcing people to attack into you, and kind of like I think we're talking in part 1 is the mind games. You know, just because, you know, I'm playing this unit, well, now you've got to deal with this unit. If you let them get around the table, well, now I'm going to be able to start casting things for cheap, sometimes even free. So, you know, letting it get to the next turn, Bendu becomes kind of crazy. And honestly, I don't even mind playing him at an 8-drop, you know, later in, if I can ramp him out, so be it. But he's definitely even worth the 8 if I'm not double aspect.
I personally am not a great fan of playing cards out of aspect, but I have done it, and I think that, you know, especially in limited play, it can sometimes get a big result. You know, yesterday when I was playing we discussed this a little bit in the earlier video, but I ended up playing a Command Chewie deck in a draft that I played last night, and at least as of this recording, and I had an Overwhelming Barrage in there, and, you know, out of aspect Overwhelming Barrage, pay 7 for it, still can honestly be a really good card.
No, absolutely. And we keep going back to, you know, the versatility of everything, but the aspect system, you know, just kind of penalizing you a couple of resources to still play any card you want, super awesome, and really opens up deck building.
A lot of flexibility, and, you know, in some games you can be stuck like without enough cards to actually make a normal deck in draft. And like, just like in Fab, you have to play this card called Cracked Bauble that's incredibly bad because you might just like not have enough cards for your class or whatever. In this game, you can play cards out of aspect, and you might want to resource them most of the time and not want to play them. But sometimes you might play that card and get a good effect out of it.
Especially towards the kind of later rounds and everything. And you just have to be like, oh, I have 7 resources. I can just play this and possibly win, just as a contingency, as opposed to, you know, just I can probably resource this. No, definitely awesome. Let's go to number 3.
Yeah, so my number 3 is actually a leader card. We have Iden Versio, Inferno Squad Commander. So Iden was originally introduced in the single-player campaign of the modern Star Wars Battlefront 2 shooter game, and in this game, she is a vigilance villainy leader. She has an ability on her leader side where she can exhaust to heal 1 damage from your base if an enemy unit has been defeated this turn. And then on the unit side, she is a 4/4 with shielded, so she gets a shield when she deploys, and each time an enemy unit is defeated, you can heal 1 damage from your base as a passive ability. So that can potentially trigger multiple times in 1 turn, and you can get some high amounts of healing over the course of a game with Iden. It's really cool.
Wait, does it not like have the clause that this only happens once?
No, if you take out 5 enemy units in 1 turn with Iden on her unit side, yeah, you heal 5. It's great.
I had no idea. I am sleeping on Iden back here.
No, the on the leader side, it's basically once per turn because she has to exhaust, and I don't think we've seen anything that readies a leader yet. But no, on the unit side, it's uncapped. You can go pretty big on that, actually.
Huh? That's super awesome. Now I need to figure out how to play her.
Yeah, and the shield is also really nice. So like some people might say, "Oh, she's a 6-cost 4/4. Those are terrible stats," but the shield is worth a lot.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I found that out.
A lot of leaders, like let's say you have Luke Skywalker, so he's 4/7, and but when you deploy him, your opponent might have a 4-power unit plus a surprise strike for 3 more power, and you could be removed right there. Like this can totally happen. I've seen it happen. Or maybe they go and they're like, you know what? I'm going to activate Energy Conversion Lab, ambush in the Steadfast Battalion, use its on attack ability to buff itself, hit you for 7.
Yeah.
And Iden though, if you do one of those things to Iden, she's like, yeah, whatever, shield. Shield can take 7 damage just as well as it can take 1. So she can laugh off some things that are really major threats to other leaders. Now, on the other hand, if the opponent is playing saboteurs, you might have to watch out. But I think having the shield instead of extra HP, overall, I consider to be a major survivability increase compared to other leaders.
No, I agree. And most leaders, and honestly all leaders, are kill on sight. Like you see it, like you're not making your leader around the table most of the time. So yeah, definitely having that shield on there is awesome, especially if you're going to be able to heal base if you're swinging into other units, because she can definitely heal at least 1 health by defeating one other unit with that shield, possibly something decently large finishing it off.
Yeah, and I mean it's also thematic because I don't know if you played Battlefront 2, but in that game you have like a droid that projects like a personal shield to protect you from attacks or whatever. So having her have the shielded keyword is very fitting.
Yeah, all the little things that they noticed. I definitely, when I saw her and her entire squad, Inferno squad, it was super cool to be like, they're from a video game, and then I'm like, ooh, that means I can still get Cal Kestis unlimited.
Dude.
Cal Kestis. We'll see if we see him in set 2. Thematically, that kind of shadows underworld type thing could be fitting. He's definitely one who's kind of been hiding in the shadows of the galaxy, so to speak. So
100%. So with mine, I'm gonna go with Mon Mothma. And I kind of want to change it after we talked about earlier about how we don't need card draw as much. But she is a 2 command heroic 1/3 rebel official. I really like her because she's got her keywords, and then when played, search the top 5 cards of your deck for a rebel card, reveal it, and draw it. I like a certain amount of card draw, especially when I'm looking for another card. I've been playing a lot of Spectres, so like trying to find that one Spectre is really key for that deck. And I think the reason she's kind of higher up is she does that card draw, she gets that rebel, she can get buffed by General Dodonna. She hits the rebel keyword, and I just like I like drawing cards. I like being able to find my other cards. So she's again kind of like that kind of jackknife of here's a little utility, not a whole lot. Don't be afraid of me. You can play her turn 1 to kind of start getting some of the other cards you need for your combos. But no, I really like her, and on theme, she's just kind of bringing the rebellion together, putting them where you need them.
Yeah, and there's a nice little combo with her. So if you play Mon Mothma, you search for a card. Then later you play Bright Hope. You use Bright Hope to return Mon Mothma to hand, draw another card. Then you can play Mon Mothma again, search for yet another card. You can get some substantial card draw going with that combination. And I will also say, while I do think card draw is not as strong in this game as some other games, card draw is not garbage.
You're darn wrong.
And with Mon Mothma, not only are you getting a card draw that has some degree of search to it, but you also do get a unit that can potentially be relevant later, especially if you're playing some of the other Rebel Synergy cards like Fleet Lieutenant or Wing Leader.
Definitely. And yeah, and I almost think she's a staple for all Rebel decks. Kind of like her was Alliance Dispatcher and General Dodonna. Like they're just Rebel staples. They're going to go into every single Rebel deck. I think they're just kind of that utility to kind of bring it all together and kind of get your activation train going.
I think my attitude towards Rebel decks is maybe a little more aggro, a little less utility. I don't always run those, but I do think they can serve a very relevant purpose, especially if you are diversifying your strategy beyond just being pure aggro and want to have some more options in the mid game and so on.
Nice, definitely. So we're coming up to number 2. What do you got?
Oh yes. Speaking of rebels and aggro, K2SO, Cassian's counterpart. This is This arguably ought to be my number one. I think so. K2 is a 4-cost 4/4. He is a rebel and a droid, and he has Overwhelm. He's in the aggression heroism aspects, and when defeated, you can choose to either deal 3 damage to. Is it an opponent's base or is it all opponents?
It's all opponents' bases. I know that.
Oh, it's all okay. So
because that's a Twin Suns card right there.
Twin Suns. Yeah. Or you can choose to. Is it all opponents discard a card?
It's all opponents too. I'm pretty sure.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah, so you can choose to either cause a discard or you can deal 3 damage to bases. So it is for each opponent, choose
one. Either deal 3 damage to that player's base or that player discards a card from their hand.
Yep.
So, man, this guy's great. So not only is he one of my favorite characters in the actual Star Wars films, I think Alan Tudyk portrayed him extremely well.
Oh yeah, I saw him at Comic-Con. His whole panel was awesome.
I think, yeah, just really good character overall. And but he's also great in the game. You know, he's versatile. You can play him in an aggro-oriented deck and do the 3 damage to base. But in the right situation, you can also make someone discard a card from their hand, and that can be really key. You know, I've had situations where people have gone down to 1 card in hand, resourcing to try to get some important play. And, you know, I have K2 and I get him defeated and remove that 1 card before they play it. And, you know, sometimes that can be game winning. So in terms of just pure stats, he's not the greatest. So, you know, 4 for 4/4 Overwhelm is decent, but, you know, if you wanted, you could play the Wampa for 4 for 4/5 Overwhelm. But I think that K2 more than makes up for it thanks to his Rebel keyword, which enables a lot of strong synergies, and that really strong and versatile when defeated ability.
Oh yeah, because when you defeat him, I mean, he basically gets another 9 attack because you're doing 3 damage to everybody. If you want to go that.
Oh yeah, for Twin Suns.
Yeah.
That's I hadn't even realized that it was all opponents. That makes this guy even crazier for the Twin Suns format. I've just been like, even in situations where he only hits 1 opponent in like 1v1 Premier or Limited, I've been finding him excellent.
Right, and that's where my mind goes. I'm like, all right, anything that says, you know, all opponents or multiple opponents or all anything, like it's awesome because my mind goes.
Honestly, that might earn him the promotion to be my overall number 1 favorite card. I hadn't even considered that aspect. So I learned something new about one of my favorites today.
Yeah, he's a banger. And then, yeah, kind of going back on that Twin Suns, you know, Lando Calrissian, he's my number 2. I've got a few videos just talking about Lando, a couple shorts, and then I talk about him in my actual, I think my favorite all the time. Yes, I do. So Lando Calrissian, responsible businessman. He is a 6 cunning, heroic, 6/5 fringe official with Saboteur. But what he does is, when played, return up to 2 friendly resources to their owner's hands. So the reason I like it is because games of Twin Suns go a little bit longer and you've got 1 of everything. So at the beginning of the game, you might need to resource, you know, 1 of your capital ships, you know, 1 of your bigger things. But then when you play Lando, you're getting it back. And ideally you play this kind of more towards the end and you can look at your resources whenever, but it kind of gives you that card advantage of kind of what we were talking about before is, you know, when you're playing, you're like, oh no, I resourced the thing I need to win. Then you can pull it back. You're like, all right, cool, I've got the thing I need to win again. It's awesome. So that's why I like him. I mean, it kind of, again, thematically fits with Lando, you know, kind of being that saboteur. Oh, he's got a keyword for that. And being able to kind of pull from, you know, the underworld of, oh, this, you thought this was here, but now it's here. And it's a little bit of card advantage, a little cunning. You know, it's funny how all these like keywords all fit with everything going on with these cards, but kind of getting that thing back that you needed to win. I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too, because if you've seen the Solo film, you know, Lando cheats at cards, and his ability lets you sort of cheat those extra cards into your hand at the right moment.
Definitely, yeah. You're kind of playing sabacc with them. I didn't actually think about that yet. So no, I love that. And again, I'm all about, you know, the Twin Suns, but I love how thematic Lando is, and Donald Glover also has a kind of part of my heart for when he played in Solo as well. So now I love this card. I love what it does in Twin Suns, and just kind of get you back where you need to go if you're a little behind and you kind of put that 1 card away that you needed.
Yeah, it also lets you make some resourcing decisions more easily in other situations. So, for instance, I remember discussing with someone the prospect of using Lando to resource like late game reach cards, like for a cause I believe in. And often if you draw those early in aggro, it's kind of awkward because you don't want to play them until late, but they can also be very important. But with Lando, you can resource those cards early, play Lando to pull them out again towards the end of the game when you need that reach. So, nice little trick there.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think he's kind of more constructed, viable? I guess he's only a 6. Would you play
never say never. I am not building with him currently, but I'm also not in the color combination for him currently. When I do run aggro decks, I often have a very low curve. So like my recent double red Sabine deck doesn't have any cards that cost more than 4. At least not in main deck. I do have Gorilla Attack Pod in the sideboard. And so for a deck with that kind of structure, I would probably rather not have something like Lando, because I might not even want to resource up to 6 in the first place. But I don't think that means that there is no deck that could use him, and I think it's very possible that another composition could find him effective. If you had some way to ambush him in, also, he hits pretty hard and has Saboteur to boot. So, could be a nasty surprise for somebody. Maybe even ambush in and take out Iden.
Yeah, ooh, see, there you go. There you go. Now we're thinking about combos over here. So, to top it all off, I see your number 1. I can appreciate your number 1. Tell everybody what's your number 1.
My number 1 card, so I want to give the caveat that I might promote K2 to be my number 1 card. I think I probably will. But for the purpose of this list, my number 1 card is the Restored Arc 170. And this is a 2-cost space unit. It is a 2/3 Rebel Fighter, and it has Restore 1. So when it attacks, restore 1 damage from your base. And part of this is, I'm not saying this is the best card in the game. I'm not even saying it's the best small space fighter in the game. The Green Squadron A-Wing is probably better than it. But for some reason, the Restored Arc has always been a card that I thought was cool ever since I first saw him previewed. I think he was previewed very early because he might have even been in like the Gen Con demo decks. But the Restored Arc 170 is just a card that I think is really cool. I mentioned earlier that I like vanilla cards. This is what they call a French vanilla card.
Card game terms, which is a
card that has no a vanilla card has no text. A French vanilla card has only a keyword and no other text beyond that. So the Restored Arc 170 is a solid French vanilla card with that Restore 1, 2-cost 2/3 in space, solid, Rebel trait, solid, lots of synergies, Restore 1, allowing you to get a little bit of healing on your base. It's overall a card that I'm often very happy to see on the first turn, and just one that I quite enjoy playing. And part of it might have been sentimental because I've been a fan of the card since early in the game, but I think it is up there as a favorite.
I'm going to agree with that statement because I have never been upset when I drew the Restored Arc. Not once. I was seeing like, oh, I'm going to play that now. Boom, on the field. Yeah, it's definitely like every time I see it, I've never wanted to resource it once. It's always a solid.
I have resourced it before, but even in the late game, that restore can be pretty important. Like if you're in the danger zone and fighting back, maybe you want to deploy a unit that's going to allow you to get that little ways out of the danger zone with restore.
No, definitely, and like I said, it's got all the keywords, and I really like that. I like that a lot. All right, so
what is your favorite card for Spark of Rebellion?
My favorite card. And it kind of goes back to, themes and all that, because I love Rebels. It got the Spectre deck. And then Twin Suns, Agent Callus, Seeking the Rebels is my favorite card. He is a 5 and a green 4/4 Imperial Trooper. He has Ambush, but the reason I like him is because when another unique unit is defeated, you may draw a card, use this ability only once each round. So you only get it once, but basically you're getting a free draw at every single round because, playing in Twin Suns, you're going to have
probably a lot of uniques leaving the field.
So many unique units. You're going to practice at least once, and he's a decent body even, and you can play him in either side. He's not for heroic. He's not for villainy, which again is super on theme because, you know, he's the mole. He flips. He wasn't Imperial. He's like, nah, I'm going to join Fulcrum and the Spectres and all that. And he was like the main villain for like the first few seasons, and he flip-flops. So I really like that because, you know, you get that card draw. It's thematic. The art is awesome. He's just kind of in the middle of a firefight, probably with Sabine and Ezra, and just blasting away, looking angry. He's super awesome.
Yeah, he's a very cool card. And you know, I think they did a good job making him as an Imperial but not villainy card to represent his sort of shifting loyalties in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you know, I think he's a cool one. I can definitely see why that card draw ability would be a lot more reliable in Twin Suns as well.
Yeah, you definitely need it because you don't have playsets.
Even in a 1v1, his card draw, there are a lot of uniques in this game, you know, and a lot of them are pretty good. So having a unit that can benefit from that can be solid.
Oh, definitely. And card draw, you know, is always good. You know, you can get that one extra because games are relatively shorter than other games when it comes to the amount of times you draw. You're only drawing 3, 4, maybe 5 times. So if you can get that extra draw in to maybe get to what you need, is definitely helpful, especially in the long run.
And he has Imperial synergy as well. So if you're playing like a Tarkin deck or something like that, where you have a lot of Imperial synergy cards, he can benefit from those. Overall, I think he's pretty cool. And it's interesting too, because there are other ambush unit options that have somewhat more efficient stats, but Callus has those synergies and has that card draw and might well end up being your pick for those reasons.
Oh, definitely. And when he's got that ambush, you could possibly, you know, take out one of their smaller unique units, like even Mon Mothma. Like she's, I think, a 1/3. So definitely getting something as soon as he's played is awesome. So kind of 5 cost, you know, defeat something, draw a card is almost how I read him.
Yeah, and if you have General Veers in play, he gives other Imperials +1/+1, so now you're ambushing a 5/5, which is pretty sweet.
Definitely, and I think Tarkin cares about troopers too. Someone cares about troopers.
Tarkin cares about Imperials. General Tag cares about troopers, and Precision Fire cares about troopers, and also the Volunteer Soldier. But you probably don't want to play the Volunteer Soldier.
I do play Volunteer Soldier in A deck only because I have a Hyperflow version.
Okay. For the aesthetic,
100% for the aesthetic. But yeah, that's our top 5. I like how diverse they are. You know, coming from every, you know, the 2 separate avenues of everything. You know, the draft, the competitive, and then over here with the Twin Suns of everything. I mean, I really think that, I guess the 2 kind of honorable mentions, just because they're good, are Vader and Luke, so people don't like hate us because, oh, they're good cards. I'm not saying they're not good cards. They're just not our favorite.
There are a lot of good cards that we couldn't put on this list.
Oh, yeah.
And I could talk a bunch about cards that I like, but we're not saying these are necessarily the best cards. These are just some cards that are special favorites.
No, definitely. And I think K2SO, he might move up into my top 5, you know, after talking about him and really realizing he's so good. But you know, that's it for this part. Definitely check out part 1 where we're talking about, you know, the state of play and everything on TowerNumberNine's channel. I'll have that link in the description below. Until then, may the force be with you.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Catch you all later.